A Meeting at the Milestone by Katy Haye. Brunner and Willa arrived at the waypost as dawn was breaking, but a crowd had already gathered. The two girls nodded to a couple of people they knew and found a spot on the edge of the crowd. The atmosphere was uneasy. Everyone was from the same village. These were neighbours and most of the time friends. But now, with hunger's claws closing around them, they were also rivals. The chance of everyone gathered finding work for the day was slim, and no work meant no pay, and no pay meant no food. "Enough of this. I'm not waiting for opportunity." One of the lads snapped the words and began to walk towards the town indicated by the leftmost pointer on the waypost. A susurration of alarm ran through the crowd. Two other young men joined the first, then a third. "Should we go?" Brunner murmured. Willa shook her head, sinking onto the weathered milestone that told them they were 97 miles from the capital. It might as well be 1,000,000. "I'll be exhausted before I arrive," she said. "The landowners know to come here for workers." Brunner stared yearningly at the young men's backs. Then she nodded, turning with a smile too bright for the hollows in her face. "Oh, look, a fox!" Willa followed her pointing hand, but she didn't smile to see the creature lurking amongst the trees a few steps from the road. Instead, she gathered a pebble from the ground and lobbed it in the animal's direction. "Shoo!" The fox slunk away. "There was no need for that. It wouldn't have done us harm," Brunner protested. "They eat babies," Willa declared, confidently offhand. "They do no such thing," Brunner argued. "A hen or two, maybe, although that one didn't look up to stealing so much as an egg." It had looked just as skinny and hungry as Brunner herself felt. She straightened her shoulders and turned away. She needed to reserve her sympathy for herself. "There!" One of the younger people in the crowd pointed along the road. Everyone turned, jostling for a good view. A cart was rumbling towards them. Hope and anticipation ran through the group. Work, or the possibility of it. Thoughts jumped quickly from the tiny cart to the bread and cheese a day's work could set on the table. A caw sounded overhead. Brunner searched the copse of trees until she found two crows perched in the leafless tops. She envied them their flight and freedom. They didn't need to wait on a farmer to offer work for measly pay. They could soar through the air until they spotted whatever it was crows ate. Carrion and corn. It was the wrong time of year, but in a few months' time they'd get work throwing stones to keep birds away from the crops. She shivered, if they could keep body and soul together that long. The cart finally arrived, the crowd jostling forward, all hoping to be chosen. Willa and Brunner held back. Willa too tired to move, and Brunner because she believed there was value in being a little different from the masses. Standing beside Willa, she even made momentary eye contact with the cart driver. It made no difference. "Men only," the farmer called. "Strong men. I've fencing and ditching to be done. It's hard work." As though they didn't know that. With a sigh of disappointment that was felt rather than heard, the women stepped back. Men seethed around the cart, clambering in, turning and pulling friends after. A minute later and the cart was loaded. Overloaded, it seemed to Brunner. The farmer took up the reins, clicked his tongue at the horse, and turned slowly back the way he'd come. The men on board, lucky to have found a day's work, didn't meet the women's eyes as they went. "There'll be something along for us soon, dearie," one of the older women assured Brunner. She nodded and turned to reassure Willa in turn, but her friend was sitting with her head in her hands, eyes closed as though trying to catch up on sleep. Brunner looked past her, another flash of movement drawing her attention to the copse of trees. A squirrel ran up a trunk, while in the underbrush something pale searched for food. A stoat, Brunner thought. She watched both until they disappeared from sight, although she didn't point either out to Willa this time. A few minutes later, another cart rumbled along the road. Anticipation jittered through the small group of women as it slowed. A woman was driving, so it was clearly their turn. "I've laundry to be done. 4 people will be enough." Women clamoured to be chosen. "We're young and strong," Brunner called out. Willa managed to heave herself to her feet, to make it a plausible claim. The driver shook her head. "I'll take experience over youth," she explained, not unkindly. She picked out 4 women, older, stockier, and they climbed into the cart. "Maybe next time," the driver called to the remaining 3, Brunner, Willa, and an older woman who was skinnier than her fellows, or perhaps just less fortunate. Brunner tried to smile, but felt more like weeping. The sun was full up by now. She couldn't return home without work or pay. Willa sat down again with an audible huff. The older woman smiled a weak reassurance and stepped forward to peer up and down the lane as though she could will an opportunity into being. Brunner crossed to the waypost. She'd planned to lean against it, but her attention was snared by a spider's web spanning a corner of the cross where the upright met the crossbar. "Willa, look!" Willa opened tired eyes. "What now?" "This spider web." Willa shuddered. "Ugh, dreadful creatures." Brunner ignored that. She rather liked them. Something so small to create something so huge by comparison. "No, but look, don't you think it looks like a map of the country?" One of those hung in the back of the church, and she loved to look at it and imagine herself travelling all over, not stuck in one tiny corner. It was fanciful, but the web had the same shape, a squared-off circle. One edge had been damaged, by the wind perhaps, and it matched the northeastern corner of the country where the great river Ritterbar flowed into the sea. There was even a mark, a trapped midge she suspected, that matched the location of the capital, Carlingden. A third cart came into sight on the road. Willa levered to her feet. "It looks like a spider's web," she said, with a dismissive swipe that destroyed the delicate thing and needed to be wiped off her hand onto her skirts. "Ugh, horrible creatures." Brunner refrained from pointing out that Willa might have transferred the spider onto her clothes with her unkind action. She hoped the spider was hidden in the wood of the waypost, so it could come out and make another web once they were gone. The cart drew to a halt. Another woman was driving. "I've cleaning to be done. A shilling for the day, and as much soup and bread as you can eat once it's done." You had me at a shilling, Brunner thought. The three women, smiling now their trial was over, climbed up into the cart and set off. The skinny woman whistled cheerfully. At the milestone, silence fell. A few minutes later, the squirrels scurried out of the woods to sit at the foot of the waypost. First one crow, then the other, flew down and settled on the crossbar with a caw. The stoat ran up and onto the milestone, sitting on the top and peering as though checking for more carts on the road. The fox was last, slinking out of the woodland with a slow, watchful gait. "Come along," the squirrel scolded. "You're always so slow. The day's wasting." The fox arrived, sitting on its haunches and looking up at the scraps of spiderweb. "You're always in a hurry. Best to be cautious." She raised her muzzle and said mournfully, "Our map's gone." The spider darted along the crossbar. "I can make another." "No need," the crows said in unison. "We remember the way. We can lead you." The stoat jumped to the ground, a flash of white in the grass. "Let's go." The spider spun a thread and dropped onto the fox's waiting head. The crows spread their wings and launched into the air, while the fox, squirrel and stoat followed on the ground. No one whistled, but a sense of quiet unity settled over the friends as they set out for their destination. That was A Meeting at the Milestone by Katy Haye. Thanks for listening.